Chapter 7. Alec craned his neck and looked up, dazzled as he passed through the soaring arched gates of Ur, jostled by mobs of people on all sides. He marched through, Marco beside him, their faces still covered in dirt from their endless trek through the plain of thorns. And he stared up at the soaring marble arch, appearing to be 100 feet high. He looked at the ancient granite temple walls on either side of him, and it amazed him that he was walking through a cutout in a temple, serving only as the city entrance. Alec saw many worshippers kneeling before its walls, a strange mix with all the hustle and bustle of commerce here, and it caused him to reflect. He had once prayed to the gods of Escalon, but now he prayed no more. What living god, he wondered, could have allowed his family to die? The only god he could serve now was the god of vengeance, and it was a god he was determined to serve with all his heart. Alec, overwhelmed by the stimulation all around him, saw right away that this city was unlike any place he had ever been, so unlike the tiny village where he had been raised. For the first time since the death of his family, he felt himself being jolted back to life. This place was so startling, so alive. It was hard to enter and not be distracted. He felt a stirring purpose as he realized inside these gates were others like him, like-minded friends of Marco, set on vengeance against Pandesia. He looked up at it all in wonder, all the people of different garb and manner and race, all rushing in every direction. It was a true cosmopolitan city. "Keep your head down," Marco hissed to him as they passed through the eastern gate, merging into the mobs. Marco nudged him. "There," Marco nodded to a group of Pandesian soldiers. "They're checking faces. I'm sure they search for ours." Alec reflexively tightened his grip on his dagger, and Marco reached over and grabbed his wrist firmly. "Not here, my friend," Marco cautioned. "This is no country village, but a city of war. Kill 2 Pandesians at the gate, and an army will follow." Marco stared at him with intensity. "Would you rather kill 2?" he pressed. "Or 2,000? Alec, realizing the wisdom in his friend's words, released his grip on his dagger, summoning all his will to quell his passion for vengeance. "There will be many chances, my friend," Marco said as they pressed on through the crowd, heads lowered. "My friends are here, and the resistance is strong." They merged with the throng passing through the gate, and Alec lowered his eyes so the Pandesians would not see him. "Hey, you!" a Pandesian barked. Alec felt his heart pounding as he kept his head down. They rushed his way, and he tightened his grip on his dagger, preparing. But they stopped a boy beside him instead, roughly grabbing his shoulder and checking his face. Alec breathed deep, relieved it was not him, and he passed through the gate quickly, undetected. They finally entered the city square, and as Alec pulled back his hood and looked inside the city, he was in awe at the sight before him. There, before him, stretched all the architectural magnificence and bustle of Ur. The city seemed to be alive, pulsing, shining in the sun, seeming to actually sparkle. At first, Alec could not understand why, and then he realized. The water. Everywhere was water, the city laced with canals, blue water sparkling in the morning sun, making the city feel as if it were one with the sea. The canals were filled with every manner of vessel, rowboats, canoes, sailing boats, even sleek black warships sailing the yellow and blue banners of Pandesia. The canals were bordered by cobblestone streets, ancient stone, worn smooth, being tread on by thousands of people in every manner of wardrobe. Alec saw knights, soldiers, civilians, traders, peasants, beggars, jugglers, merchants, farmers, and many other folk, all mingling together. Many wore colors Marco had never seen, clearly visitors from across the sea. Visitors from around the world who were visiting Ur, Escalon's international port. Indeed, bright foreign colors and insignias were flown by all the different ships cramming the canal, as if the whole world had come together at one place. The cliffs surrounding Escalon are so high, they are what keep our land impregnable, Marco explained as they walked. Ur has only one beach, the only harbour for large vessels wishing to beach. Escalon has other harbours, but none as easy to access. So when they wish to visit us, they all come here," he added with a wave of his hand, looking out at all the people and the ships. "It is both a good and a bad thing," he continued. "It brings us trade and commerce from all four corners of the kingdom." "And the bad?" Alex asked as they squeezed their way through the crowd and Marco stopped to purchase a stick of meat. "It leaves Ur prone to attack by sea," he replied. "It is a natural spot for an invasion." Alex studied the city's skyline in awe, taking in all the steeples, the endless array of tall buildings. He had never seen anything like it. "And the towers?" he asked, looking up at a series of tall, square towers crowned with parapets sticking up over the city and facing the sea. "They were built to watch the sea," Marco answered, "against invasion, though with the weak king's surrender, little good it did us." Alec wondered. "And if he hadn't been surrendered," Alec asked, "could Ur fend off an attack by sea?" Alec shrugged. "I'm no commander," he said, "but I know we have ways. We could certainly fend off pirates and raiders. A fleet is another story, but in its 1,000-year history, Ur has never fallen, and that tells you something." Distant bells tolled in the air as they continued walking, mixing with the sound of seagulls overhead, circling, squawking. As they pushed through the mobs, Alec found his stomach growling as he smelled all manner of food in the air. His eyes widened as they passed rows of merchant booths, all lined with goods. He saw exotic objects and delicacies he had never laid eyes upon before, and he marveled at this cosmopolitan city life. Everything was faster here, everyone in such a rush, the people bustling so quickly that he could barely take it all in before they passed him. It made him realize what a small town he had come from. Alex stared at a vendor selling the largest red fruits he had ever seen, and he reached into his pocket to buy one, when he felt his shoulder bumped hard from the side. He spun to see a large man, older, towering over him, with a black scruffy beard scowling down. He had a foreign face which Alec did not recognize, and he cursed in a language Alec did not understand. The man then shoved him, sending Alec, to his surprise, flying backwards into a stall, crashing down to the street. "There's no need for that," Marco said, stepping forward and putting out a hand to stop the man. But Alec, normally passive, felt a new sense of rage. It was an unfamiliar feeling, a rage smouldering inside him ever since the death of his family, a rage which needed an outlet. He could not control himself. He jumped to his feet and lunged forward, and with a strength he didn't know he had, punched the man in the face, knocking him back, sending him crashing over another stall. Alex stood there, amazed that he had knocked down the much bigger man, while Marco stood beside him wide-eyed too. A commotion erupted in the marketplace as the man's oafish friends began to run over, while a group of Pandesian soldiers came running over from the other side of the square. Marco looked panicked, and Alec knew they were in a precarious position. "This way," Marco urged, grabbing Alec and yanking him roughly. As the oaf gained his feet and the Pandesians closed in, Alec and Marco ran through the streets, Alec following his friend as he navigated this city he knew so well, taking shortcuts, weaving in and out between stalls and making sharp turns down alleyways. Alec could barely keep up with all the sharp zigzags. Yet, when he turned and looked over his shoulder, he saw the large group closing in and knew they had a fight on their hands they could not win. "Here!" Marco yelled. Alec watched Marco jump off the edge of the canal, and without thinking, he followed him, expecting to land in water. He was surprised, though, not to hear a splash, and to instead find himself landing on a small stone ledge down at the bottom, one he had not detected from above. Marco, breathing hard, knocked 4 times on an anonymous wood door built into the stone beneath the street, and a second later, the door opened and Alec and Marco were pulled into the blackness, the door slamming behind them. Before it did, Alec saw men running toward the edge of the canal, questioning, unable to see below as the door closed. Alec found himself underground, in a dark subterranean canal, and he ran, baffled, splashing in water up to his ankles. They twisted and turned, and soon there came sunlight again. Alec saw they were in a large stone room beneath the city streets, sunlight filtering in from grates high above, and he looked over in amazement to see himself surrounded by several boys their age, all with faces covered in dirt and smiling back good-naturedly. They all stopped, breathing hard, and Marco smiled and greeted his friends. "Marco," they said, embracing him. "June, Sorrow, Baggy," Marco replied. They each stepped forward and he embraced each one, grinning, these men clearly like brothers to him. They were each about their age, as tall as Marco, broad-shouldered, with tough faces and the looks of boys who had managed to survive their whole lives on the streets. They were boys who clearly had had to make a way for themselves. Marco pulled Alec forward. "This," he announced, "is Alec. He's one of us now." One of us. Alec liked the sound of that. It felt good to belong somewhere. They each clasped forearms with him, and one of them, the tallest, Baggy, shook his head and grinned. "So, you are the one who started all that excitement?" he asked with a smile. Alec smiled sheepishly back. "The guy pushed me," Alec said. The others all laughed. "Good enough a reason as any to risk our lives on this date," Sarah replied, sincere. "You're in a city now, country boy," June said sternly, unsmiling, unlike the others. "You could have got us all killed. That was stupid. Here, people don't care. They'll shove you, and a whole lot worse. Keep your head down and watch where you're going. If someone bumps you, turn away, or you may find a dagger in your back. You got lucky this time. This is Ur. You never know who's crossing the street, and people here will cut you for any reason, and some for no reason at all." His newfound friends suddenly turned and headed off, deeper into the cavernous tunnels, and Alec hurried to catch up as Marco joined them. They all seemed to know this place by heart, even in the dim light, twisting and turning with ease through the underground chambers, water dripping and echoing all around them. They had all clearly grown up here. It made Alec feel inadequate, having grown up in Soli, seeing this place, which was so worldly, these boys who were so street-smart. They had all clearly suffered trials and hardships which Alec could never imagine. They were a rough lot, having clearly been in more than a few altercations, and above all, they appeared to be survivors. After turning down a series of alleys, the boys ascended a steep metal ladder, and soon Alec found himself back above ground, on the streets, in a different part of Ur, emerging into another bustling crowd. Alec spun and looked around, seeing a big town square with a copper fountain in its center, not recognizing it, barely able to keep track of all the neighborhoods of this sprawling city. The boys stopped before a low, squat, anonymous building made of stone, similar to all the others, with its low, slanted, red-tiled roof. Baggy knocked twice, and a moment later the anonymous rusted door opened. They all quickly filed inside, then it slammed closed behind them. Alec found himself in a dim room, lit only by the sunlight streaming in through windows high above, and he turned as he recognized the sound of hammers striking anvils, and surveyed the room with interest. He heard the hiss of the forge, saw the familiar clouds of steam, and he immediately felt at home. He did not have to look around to know he was in a forge, and that it was filled with smiths working on weapons. His heart lifted with excitement. A tall, thin man with a short beard, perhaps in his 40s, face blackened from soot, wiped his hands on his apron and approached. He nodded at Marco's friends with a look of respect, and they nodded back. "Farrell," Marco said. Farrell turned and saw Marco, and his face lit up. He stepped forward and embraced him. "I thought you'd gone to the flames," he said. Marco grinned back. "Not anymore," he replied. "You boys ready to work?" he added. Then he looked over at Alec. "And who do we have here?" "My friend," Marco replied. "Alec, a fine smith and eager to join our cause." "Is he now?" Farrell asked skeptically. He surveyed Alec with harsh eyes, looking him up and down as if he were useless. "I doubt that," he replied. "From the looks of him, looks awful young to me." but we can put him to work collecting our scraps. Take this, he said, reaching over and handing Alec a bucketful of metal scrap. I'll let you know if I need more from you. Alec reddened, indignant. He did not know why this man had taken such a dislike to him. Perhaps he was threatened. He could sense the forge grow quiet, could sense the other boys watching. In many ways, this man reminded him of his father, and that only increased Alec's anger. Still, he fumed inside, no longer willing, since the death of his family, to tolerate anything he had before. As the others turned to walk away, Alec dropped the bucket of metal and it clanged loudly on the stone floor. The others all turned around, stunned, and the forge grew quiet as the other boys stopped to watch the confrontation. "Get the hell out of my shop," Farrell snarled. Alec ignored him. Instead, he stepped past him to the closest table, picked up a long sword, held it out straight and examined it. "This your handiwork," Alec said. "And who are you to be asking questions of me?" Farrell demanded. "Is it?" Marco pressed, sticking up for his friend. "It is," Farrell answered defensively. Alec nodded. "It's junk," he concluded. There came a gasp in the room. Farrell stood to his full height and scowled back, livid. "You boys can leave now," he snarled. "All of you. I have enough Smiths in here." Alec stood his ground. "And none worth a damn," he countered. Farrell turned red and stepped forward threateningly, and Marco put a hand between them. "We'll leave," Marco said. Alec suddenly lowered the sword's tip to the ground, raised his foot high, and with one clean kick, shattered it in two. Shards flew everywhere, stunning the room. "Should a good sword do that?" Alec asked with a wry smile. Farrell shouted and charged Alec, and as he neared, Alec held out the jagged end of the broken blade, and Farrell stopped in his tracks. The other boys, seeing the confrontation, drew swords and rushed forward to defend Farrell, while Marco and his friends drew theirs around Alec. All the boys stood there, facing off with each other in a tense standoff. "What are you doing?" Marco asked Alec. "We all share the same cause. This is madness." "And that is why I cannot let them fight with junk," Alec replied. Alec threw down the broken sword, reached over, and slowly drew a long sword from his belt. "Here is my handiwork," Alec said loudly. "I crafted it myself in my father's forge. A finer work you will never find." Alec suddenly turned the sword, grabbed the blade and held it out hilt first to Farrell. In the tense silence, Farrell looked down, clearly not expecting this. He snatched the hilt, leaving Alec defenseless, and for a moment, he seemed to contemplate stabbing Alec with it. Yet Alec stood there proudly, unafraid. Slowly, Farrell's face softened, clearly realizing Alec had left himself defenseless, and looking at him with more respect. He looked down and examined the sword. He weighed it in his hand and held it up to the light, and finally, after a long time, he looked back at Alec, impressed. "Your work?" he asked, disbelief in his voice. Alec nodded. "And I can forge many more," he replied. He stepped forward and looked at Farrell, intensity in his eyes. "I want to kill Pandesians," Alec replied, "and I want to do it with real weapons." A long, thick silence lingered over the room, until finally, Farrell slowly shook his head and smiled. He lowered the sword and held out an arm, and Alec clasped it. Slowly, all the boys lowered their weapons. "I suppose," Farrell said, his grin broadening, "we can find a spot for you."